Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Costing 101 webinar. I wish it was a seminar. I wish we were all together in New Orleans, but we'll leave that for next year. I am joined today by our presenter and my good friend and colleague, Dave Domzalski. So for those of you that haven't had a chance to meet yet, my name is Sean Finter. Spent my life in the industry. 10 years in Australia. I built a bar and restaurant group out there before moving back to North America and started a company called Barmetrics, where we serve all three constituencies in the hospitality industry. So owners, managers, and staff, and really just try to make it a better place to work and a more profitable endeavor for owners and a more meaningful career for management. So I've done that for many years with my friend Dave Domzalski, who worked for us up here in the Mid-Atlantic area as our operations manager for the whole company before he became a partner and is now the owner of Barmetrics in Miami, Florida. So welcome, Dave. How are you?
Doing well, man. Thank you. Thank you. Getting ready for our first hurricane of the season. But other than that, we're fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
What else could go wrong, right? So we'll load a hurricane on.
That's right. It's August.
I see you're growing your hair out for the hurricane season. I like that. So
it's my quarantine hair. I refuse to cut it. I'm not cutting it.
No. You stopped cutting your hair like 2 years ago, so it has nothing to do with the quarantine. That's another story. Dave, two friends, wrote this book, and I had the honor of writing the foreword for it, The Bar Shift. So for those of you that haven't heard about that, what's the Bar Shift all about, Dave?
The Bar Shift is 41 lessons, management lessons you don't have to learn the hard way. And we go through four main areas of operations in bars. It's really primarily written for bar managers, who I consider to be a very underrepresented constituency in our industry. And it goes from customer service to financials, operations. It covers such a wide range, and it's designed to make it to be sort of a manual and as well as a reference guide. And a lot of my clients have it on their back bar, and when they need something, they open it up and right there.
Yeah, that's cool. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who has several locations, and so a lot of young managers. And I suggested they pick up copies of this and then read, like, they're very short bites. So either a little chapter a week or a chapter every other week, and then mark it red, yellow, green. Green is like we're knocking it out of the park on this subject. Yellow is like we're doing it, but it's not working that well. And red is we're not doing it at all. And then you've got an opportunity to act on that. So great book. I suggest you guys pick it up.
By the way, I love that idea. We should have had you like write the foreword or something. You could have really added something to it.
Well, a lot of people say the foreword's the best part of the book. And by a lot of people, I mean me. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Totally. We're here to talk about costing. And before I get Dave to speak to the 80-20 rule, which I think, not only governs business, but governs our lives. I think, this subject last year was poignant. It always is, right? How do you sharpen the saw in your business, and how do you get more out of your business? It's even more so now. This isn't about doom and gloom and post-COVID and all of that, but we're entering a new economy right now. And I think a lot of the habits and methodology that operators were operating in that got us here, and for some people that was 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, it has to change now, right? Like if you weren't making 15, 18% net profits in the boom economy, this is going to be a tough economy to operate in. So you've got to really pay attention today and figure out how to squeeze an extra 1% out of here and 3% out of there. And if you do that, I think you're going to do well. So Dave, talk to us about the 80-20 rule.
Yeah, I think before I jump into that, I just want to be clear that I know a lot of people watching this aren't necessarily really, data-driven people, data geeks. If you are, awesome. You're in my company. But if not, let me be your data geek for the day. I got you covered. One of the things in data that I love digging into is that 80-20 piece. And to be honest, I've heard it so much. It's thrown around so many times. It almost sounds cliche, but we've seen it proven over and over again in what we do. And so just to give a tiny bit of background, I directly work with pulling data out of bars and restaurants and turning it into great information. And in doing that, what I found, number one, true 80-20 rule is that 80% of the revenue in a business comes in 20% of the hours of operation. And number two is 80% of that revenue comes from 20% of the products in the business. This holds true for massive cocktail bars with 1,500 different SKUs, as well as it does for your quaint little awesome neighborhood bar that's got maybe 50 things in the back bar. It always proves out. And I want you to keep this in mind. It's really important because we're going to apply another 80-20. This one's more, honestly, more of a gut thing to me, but I've seen it happen over and over again. And that's where, as operators, we get stuck. And we kind of get stuck in spending 80% of our time focusing on 20% of where our business makes money, right? So we'll look at a lunch shift and say, we're doing $1,000, maybe we can squeeze another 500. Instead of focusing on those 20% of products and 20% of time where we're already making money, going, hey, we have a captive group of things making us money at this moment, people in the restaurant as well as products that are doing well. Let's focus there. And that's what I'm going to be looking at today. And the basic principles that I'm going to take us through here, that's this 101, a true 101, when applied, will do that for you. And we want to apply it on those big ticket items. Because before all this started, like Sean said, I don't want to get mired down, but this is our reality. A lot of the owners and operators that I've worked with sort of had this feeling of floating around in a life raft, hoping that everything would turn out okay. 10%, was the average profit we're looking to make, and that's going to do us okay. And now I think more so we're that hand in the water drowning, saying help. Like I really want to. I don't know what to do here. Now, by the way, if you're not one of those people, if you're already doing really well, this is also stuff that will take you from good to great. These are solid foundational principles that if you're already at 10, 12%, you say, I want to be at 15 to 18 Sean just talked about, we got you covered there too. This all works there.
Yeah. Hey, just for everyone that's listening, that's in operations in our industry. So if you're a supervisor, AGM, GM, group operations manager, I want you to think about it this way. I believe there's only two types of management teams when it comes to working in that 20%, when you take 80% of your revenue. 95% of teams are trying to survive the shift, right? Survive Friday night, survive Saturday night. And you get through it the best you can. And sometimes you have a pretty good night and other times you don't, but you get through it. And at the end of it, it's like, whew, and we go home. 5% of businesses in our industry look to thrive during that time. They are in the zone. They are looking for opportunities all shift. And at the end of the shift, they have a post-shift meeting to say what worked, what didn't work, what could we do better so that we can optimize this business even further, right? And that's why some businesses make 18% and some businesses make 1.8% profits. Same customers, same prices, same retail space, just a very different philosophy on business.
And you all, and if you're watching this, I'm sure you already know two of those bars, right? You know, two bars, two nightclubs, whatever it is in your city. Maybe they're around the corner, maybe they're a couple miles away. They both look busy, incredibly busy. They both look like everything's going great for them. But one, after 3 years, the owner, she's starting up new properties. Everybody wants to invest. They want to be involved. The other one, trying to figure out how to get out of it. Just can't take it anymore. Barely breaking even. And that's what I want to keep you to keep in mind here, the tale of two bars here, right? And as I'm explaining and we're going through these basic principles, apply that to your knowledge of what you've seen and how things work here, right? So we want to be that store that has that 10% target, it's hitting it, or 15% target, rather than a store that looks just as busy, but they're not hitting it. They're making that 1.92%, whatever smaller profits they're making in their business. And one last piece on what Sean said there, in terms of having those end of shift meetings, we also want to drive that into a weekly or monthly breakdown of the business to say, okay, we know this thing is not working quite right. Let's dig into it. And we're gonna show you a couple of things here. And of course, there's all sorts of ways that bars and restaurants can fail. We can have problems with labor that we can't get our heads around. We can have horrible lease agreements that we didn't realize. But we're going to dig into this planning side on costing things out in the business, and then applying down the road, or looking at down the road how that plan has turned out and how that might be impacting our ability to make or not make money. And the current basic, we're going to start with the now, right? What do we currently see in the market? When I go out and I meet a brand new operator, owner, whoever it is, and I start having conversations, I love asking questions, and I like talking too, but I like asking questions. And the current basics I get are target cost of goods, right? So we all know what that is, and I'm going to go through that quickly. And then what I like to call actual-ish cost of goods. Some operators, they're doing well there. They know they have a beginning inventory, an ending inventory. They're calculating depletion. They have a really strong idea of what they're doing. But more often than not, there's flaws in that I found, which is why I'm able to do what I do. And more so than that, there's something I run into that I really need to cover here, and that's what I call the cost of purchases. And that's purchases divided by sales. And that in itself is an interesting number. It shows if you're purchasing well, but it's not a cost of goods, because cost of goods, let's think about it this way. Cost of goods is the inverse of profit, right? And if I buy a ton of stuff today and I only sell a little bit of it, it's not going to impact my profits. My profits are on what I moved through the business. Same thing with cost. If I don't buy things for a week, it's not going to make my profits look any better. My profits are on what I moved through the business. Same with the cost of goods. Cost of goods is literally just the opposite. 100% minus your profits equals your cost of goods, right? So when I have these conversations, I'll talk to people and say, oh, well, I didn't order much this week, so my cost should be great. Well, I'm sorry, but your costs are only about what's moving through the business, not what you purchased. Of course, that's part of the equation. You have to use purchases to determine your depletion, but anything you didn't move, it's just sitting, whether you bought a lot or little. So very clear, purchases divided by sales does not equal cost of goods. So we got that down.
So, hey, Dave, before you move on, and I just had a flashback to high school where I did not do well. I was always excited to get to class to see my friends and everything, but then when I got there and the teacher started talking, like sometimes I just turned off a little bit because I wasn't ready for the info. And I want you guys just to remember, like, moving forward in this new economy, you need to learn new things and do new things and really embrace this. If you liken it to like your physical fitness, a bunch of years ago, I was really heavy, like 275 pounds for a long time. And I started training like for 4 weeks at a trainer, ate differently. I went after it. Nothing happened. Like I didn't lose any weight. I didn't feel like I was getting much stronger. I was very frustrated. And my trainer said to me, like, to lose weight and get strong, there's like 3 circles that have to overlap. It's like your exercise is only one part of it. Your diet is huge, and your sleep is also huge. And I had to learn how to sleep. That was the biggest thing for me. And I thought, I've been sleeping since I was a baby, right? Like, now with the stresses of an adult, I had to relearn how to sleep. In this case here, if you want to excel in this new economy, you have to continue to be very good at operations and running your business when it's busy and hiring people and so forth. You have to continue to be excellent at hospitality. And that means the way you make other people feel. And you have to really sharpen up on your financial acumen. Everyone in your organization has to become financially literate. And it starts with each of us learning something new and then being able to teach that on. So this is really important stuff. And I think, we're going to learn something here today together.
Awesome. By the way, I remember that. I was there when Sean went through that. That's a true story. It's not just
once I got it right, I lost 50 pounds in 12 weeks.
It was amazing. It was like you just shrunk. So that's sort of the current basics that I see for the most part. Of course, there are people out there who understand there's more to it, whether they really get the entirety of it or they just get like, of course, there's more to it. But that's kind of where that conversation tends to end when I'm talking to people about the costing in their business. But we need to get to a new basics, right? We need to frame this out differently. And the basics really should be our target, which again, I think we all know, but I'll run through that quickly. Our potential cost of goods, which I'm going to show you, and our actual cost of goods. Those two working together will determine the overall success of your beverage program or your food program, frankly. But I'm focusing on the beverage side here because that's where our tails the cocktail, not tails the steak. And once we've got that down, once we have a fundamental understanding of this, that's when we can go from, I had a great plan, things should have worked out, I should have done better, to, man, everything's working great. I can open up more, I can retire this, whatever I want to do with it. Now, the other piece of this, because it is mentioned, is the trapdoor side. Now, I'm not going to get into these. I want you to be aware of the complexity of this conversation And I'm going to touch on two of these, but there are, and mind you, I've got 9 right here. 9? Yeah, 9 right here. And there's probably like 20 of these. I don't know. There's so many. But things like product mix, loss, discounts, hidden pricing, which we are going to cover that one. Opportunity cost, that one gets really tricky. Glassware. If our glassware is wrong, we can be losing tons of money. Prep and cleanup time, right? That ties back to the opportunity cost. These things are all interconnected. Overstock, dead stock. This one's a big deal. So many of my clients, I think the average holding for my clients when all this shut down was about 50 grand. I have some upwards of 100. I've heard stories of like $1 million worth of stock sitting around. I want you to imagine if you have about that much of what you would do with this. This conversation used to be one that I would kind of get pushed back. We're holding it. It's not a big deal. I'm hoping that now we understand how critical it is to keep our stock tight for all sorts of reasons, including one like this. That's a big one. And then seasonality, right? The Lyme apocalypse of 2007, how prices change on certain things as the seasons shift through. So these are a bunch of much more complicated things or complex interactions that happen in the background, but they all tie back into the potential and actual cost of goods. So starting on target, really straightforward. We buy something for a price, we sell it for a larger price, and we divide those out and we get a percentage. So if we buy a bottle of beer for $1 and we sell it for $5, 1 divided by 5, 20% cost of goods. That's something I think almost everybody knows, is very aware of. If you're not, welcome. You learned something today. And that's wonderful. And it's a great thing to have a plan. But then this horrible thing happens. We open our doors. And we start out with this pie that we go, hey, we're going to have 20% of our retail come in. It's going to be cost, and we're going to be able to use the rest to pay our bills and make some money. But then we open the doors, customers come in, they start buying crap. These jerks, they don't buy the things we want them to buy. They're buying them at prices that we didn't think they were going to buy a lot of at prices. And we end up with a potential cost of goods. Potential cost of goods is this.
Hey Dave, before you hit that, I just hopefully to bring it to life, I'm going to give you 2 examples on 2 of the trap doors. The audience 2 of the examples. So when I had my bars in Australia, for example, on discounts, I charged one of the managers, she was a supervisor, that every fortnight she would produce a report on our discounts and, simple pie charts, what we were spending, who was charging what out, how that'll work. But then a 1 paragraph to explain how that was serving the business, right? Like, is this helping us or hurting us? Because nothing's neutral. And if it was helping us, tell us why. Why do you think this is? And then should we do more of it if it's helping us? Or where's the diminishing point of return, right? So if you get someone focused on that one thing, then you're going to have a very different outcome. Likewise with overstock and dead stock. I had one person, head bartender at each place, every fortnight, report on the overstock or dead stock and tell us what they were going to do about it, how they were going to move it through the system, how we're going to price it, what recipes would be effective to move it. So I can tell you, we had a $30 million operation, 8 locations. I didn't have any dead stock, right? If a bottle or 2 ever crept up, and sometimes these were samples from suppliers or whatever, it got looked at every 14 days and dealt with and moved through the system, right? That's efficiency in business. That's delegation, and that's empowering people around you to help you run your company. And when you do that, good things happen.
Right. It also shows them how clearly, it clearly shows them how important paying attention to detail is to you. And that's incredibly powerful. I think Patrick Russell up in Baltimore, my first boss in the restaurant industry, every single time I copped something, I had to write the reason on the ticket, turn them in. If they weren't there, he'd call me in the morning. So this doesn't match. Where's this one? I want to know why you comped this much money on in my business. It made me incredibly thoughtful and just really thoughtful about every single discount I gave. That's powerful stuff. When we do that, right, then we can start looking. We can really control our potential. And our potential, by the way, some people call this ideal cost of goods. It's the best we could have done for a particular period of time based on what we sold and how much cash we collected for what we sold or what price we sold it at, right? So, or the cost of everything we bring into the POS. And by the way, anybody on this call, if you're an operator, you have the ability, maybe not the time, but you have the ability to put in all of your costs into your most POSs. I think almost every POS does this now. If it doesn't, you need a new POS. You put in all your costs and it'll produce this number for you. So it'll say, hey, based on everything you've got in your business, and everything you're ringing in, you've got a different number. So in our example here, just a quick sales example, we sell 2 bottles of beer, 3 glasses of wine. The cost of the wine is 25%, 2 divided by the 8. And we end up with that makeup, right? $8 of cost for all those 5 items divided by the $34 we collected for those items at a 23.5% potential or ideal cost of goods. And when you look at this across the business, you can end up with wildly different numbers than you thought you were going to get. Sometimes better, sometimes worse.
Yeah. So, hey, Dave, on that, and for us learning something together today, and then as importantly, teaching it on to our teams. When I would show my team these slides here, like this is what people know, right? They go to the bottle shop, they buy a bottle of beer for $1, and they know we sell it for $5, and they think that the ownership are making $4 when they do this, or in this case, it's only a 23.5% cost of goods. What I would do is put below that, like our actual net profit from the month before, and let's say it was 5%, and saying it actually costs us 95% of that amount to put this across the bar, because all we ever make off it is 5%. And that really adds that perspective for people. And I think when people really understand the deal, they act accordingly, right? If they think you're just rolling in money, maybe they're not as careful with every transaction they should be.
Oh God, yes. Yeah, and that's what we do, right? I mean, that's what I do every single day. I go out and I help people with that conversation. And it's just common. It's very common for people not to understand how it really works, what the true cost of that bottle of beer is. So we've taken our potential cost, we're taking our cost of goods from that beautiful 20% we wanted, but just no fault of our own. We have customers, they're buying stuff, we're doing all these discounts, this, that, and the other, and we're up to 24%. And that 4% is going to come right out of our profit. Remember, they're inverses of each other, right? And what happens when potential cost of goods creeps up, right? So imagine this is the only problem in the business, and if we could fix this, we would be rolling in it. It comes down to something I like to call set it and forget it. And it's very common in the industry. It's very common everywhere, frankly. This is not an industry problem specifically, but we start a happy hour and we're trying to build our business, right? We have that push-pull of revenue and profit, right? We want to get enough people in so we can have money coming in. We're not worried so much about the percentage at this point because we need people in seats buying things. And over time, that happy hour that was 5, 10, 15 people is now 100 people. And they're drinking like crazy amounts of alcohol. Our happy hour, we haven't changed the hours of the happy hour. We haven't changed our pricing. And now we have a situation where, again, we see all these people in our business, the happy hour is working. Why aren't our profits where they should be? Similarly, and this is we're going to go into a lot more detail here, but wait, there's more, is pricing side of things. Sort of the hidden cost of what I call flat upcharges, right? So we have rocks, we have neat, we have old fashioned, all these things. This is one example. By the way, this is a real client's data. I can't tell you who, but these are real numbers, real costs of a bottle of liquor. I can't say which liquor, and the actual retail price they set for it. And we have what's called what I call a flat upcharge. So we go from 1.5 ounce pour to 2 ounce pour, and the 1.5 ounce is $10. So we have said that 1.5 ounces of this liquid is worth $10 to us. However, we only charge an extra $2 when we're going from 1.5 ounces to 2 ounces. That extra ½ ounce, we're putting a value of $2 on, right? And really quick math in my head, that's about $3.33 per ½ ounce before. Now we're dropping it down to $2, right? And the difference in cost of goods on that, it's not that much, 1.6. It goes from 14.7 to 16.3%. Oh, well, what's the big deal? The big deal is when we run that over larger numbers. So let's say today we set this up. We're not selling that many old fashions. We don't think we're going to sell a lot of old fashions, but it turns out our customers have told us that we're wrong. They love it. They start buying more and more. We're selling 2, 3, 500 a week, whatever that number is. And again, real numbers from this client. We look at one bottle now, right? So on each bottle, if we sell it all as this old-fashioned rocks neat, we're now losing $23 based on what we were initially intending to collect. Over the course of 6 bottles a week for an entire year, it's now $7,000. These are real numbers. This is money that we can't put back in the bank account. Now, I'm not saying you have to charge the exact same amount or that this is a horrible practice. What I'm saying is dig into your data. It's in there. It's in your POS. This is something you can do. I've done it for a bunch of my clients, and it can be way more impactful than this, by the way. When I ran this for martinis, so like an extra shot, the majority of people I work with, not 100%, do an 1.5 ounce regular pour and a 3-ounce martini pour. And they will charge an extra $3. It's this bizarre standard that I found working with, say, about 400, 500 different venues over the course of the last 20 years. And it's just this random number, $3 extra. So you're saying that a shot is worth $10, but another shot's worth $3 for your business. And the margins crash. They absolutely crash and burn. And when I ran the numbers, it was $24,000 a year in that example. You got to look at your own examples, but this is where this is one of those trap doors where they can just sort of dig into your potential cost of goods. And again, you could have no loss and still not be making money and not quite understand why. So don't set it and forget it. Review the business. What Sean was talking about before, every shift, let's do a weekly and a monthly dive into the business. Are we where we need to be? Do we have solid numbers? First off, let's make sure we're not in a garbage in, garbage out. And if we have solid numbers, are they where we need them to be? If not, where do we start looking? Where we think things might be happening at?
So I think it's fair to say, Dave, that a lot of folks in this industry forget that we're retailers, right? And we have to be excellent at the skills of a retailer. And looking at this, where you've got one product that can have a difference of $24,000, you do that 4 or 5 products, and you've got $100,000 just laying out every year, and it's a lot of money for a bar that does, a couple $1 million a year. These are things like that I suggest to everyone, that you are literally pulling apart, your business and your numbers at very least on a quarterly basis. And I mean, like, turning everything off, sitting down, a complete analysis of what's happening in your company. And if you don't know how to do that, you got to get somebody in. It doesn't cost $1 million to get someone in. That a guy like Dave that'll go through, and you've got the tools to look at every single product and every single yield. And then you've also got to attach a logic to it and say, okay, that's what we are selling and how much we're selling and what the yield is, but what do we want to be selling? Because when you start to get proactive and you start to work with your staff so that they're making recommendations and they're steering guests in a certain way, and not just for profit, but for a unique experience that you guys are really proud of. They're really proud. You want to make sure that that you get yourself in that position.
Yep, couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. And by the way, my email address is going to be at the end of this. If you do need help, shoot me a message. So potential is the second part of our new basics. The last part of our new basics is our actual cost of goods. If you are already doing this well, congratulations, you're ahead of the game. I still would imagine that looking into your process and making sure it's perfect would be a great idea, because this is the hidden killer. So if you don't know what my business does, the main thing I do a bunch of things around all this, but the main thing that we start with all our clients is looking at the loss in their business. Because in America, United States of America, the average percent loss is 20%. The average variance is 20%. And we've seen this proven out over and over again. At one point, the National Restaurant Association had a piece out about this. It is a very well understood number by those who understand it, and it is a killer. It's busy breaking even. You will not make any extra money. You cannot. You're married to your job, right? You own a job, not a business. You can't leave. If you leave and pay a general manager, now you got nothing. And that's what drives into the actual cost of goods, because the only difference between the actual and the potential is that loss figure, because the potential is what's going through the POS, right? It's what we rung in. It's exactly how we did based on what was rung in the POS at what price. The actual now takes into account the depletion, right? And the only extra depletion out of what's going through the POS is the stuff that wasn't rung in. That could be a delivery where somebody didn't check it in, there wasn't a bottle in there. You paid for the bottle. The cost is delivered. Now you're not getting any retail for it. It could be a bottle broken that somebody didn't record, or a spill they didn't record, or it could be straight theft. It could be people taking bottles in the back, drinking. It could be overpouring. It could be giving drinks away. Anything where it doesn't go through their POS, but it's left the business. It's gone through the business effectively, right? So it's the cost of everything we went through. And fortunately, right before this whole thing happened, and we could still go out to bars. I was in a bar. I saw this happen in real time. I took a video, and we're gonna play that video for you right now, so you can see. And I put some little graphics so you can see how that math works out. So we're gonna play that video for you right now. All right, crazy, right? So this is very common, and this could just be forgetfulness, right? So I get 5 orders in, and one of those orders was that 2 beers and that 3 glasses of wine. But I'm trying to remember. I'm standing my POS. I'm like, okay, it's 2 beers, 2 glasses of wine. All the cost again is gone. Like we've paid for that product. So that the numerator of our equation, which is cost on top, cost divided by retail, that doesn't change, right? The bottom does though. So the bottom now goes from that nice big chunky number we wanted down minus that glass of wine, that $8, and we go from a 23.5% cost of goods on that transaction to a 30.7% cost of goods. Now you might say, well, that's only a 7-point increase. Or if you're really tied into the finance world, that's 700 basis points. That's not the number we want to look at. That's great that you know that, but that's a 30% increase in your cost of goods. That's a 30% drop in your profits, right? That 30 minus 23.5, you divide that by that starting 23.5, and you have a 30% drop in your profits. It's devastating. If you don't have your heads around this, if you can't shoot me an email and say, Dave, I know exactly what I lost last month. I know exactly what I lost last week. I'm missing 0.5 ounces of Jameson. I'm good to go. If you can't do that, if you don't know how many bottles of beer went through your business last week or last month or last year that weren't rung in, that is where I would start. Tackle that. It will change your life. And I know this from experience. By the way, this is on a very low end, tens of thousands. To my average client, is $100,000 in additional profits when I'm done fixing all those issues with them.
Yeah. So, looking back in a past life, I used to buy bars and restaurants from people that ran them for years, worked so hard, worked so many hours, poured their heart into it, and never made any money. And I would buy them and change almost nothing, except I would run a tight business, make sure that we were delivering good hospitality. And then when it came to the products, I'd have the right products, the right retail strategy, and 100% accountability. And if things were missing, just like cash, people had to leave, so we got it tight. And so I took the average business that I bought was losing 2%. And our portfolio ran at about 18% net profits. That's a 20% swing. And when you're talking about, $30 million portfolio, that's real money.
Real money.
So, that's what's possible in the industry. And what Dave's pointing out going through this, these are like turning screws, right? 2% change here, 1% change there, 5% change here. And suddenly, I can tell you, your business will get up on plane. And yep. I also had one venue that was struggling. And I tell you, that one, until we got it going, took more energy out of me than the other 7 did combined. So I know what it's like to feel you can't breathe and can't get that venue up and running, and it doesn't have enough cash to pay the bills, yet you're kind of busy on a few nights a week. We tightened the screws even tougher there. We drove the hospitality more. We got our ops right, and we turned the corner. And I think it's possible at all venues.
Oh, God, yes. God, yes. I mean, we've had multiple clients, even back when we were in DC, who had multi-sites, right? They have 3, 5 venues, and they would have 1 or 2 that struggled, and the other ones they fixed. And they made so much money out of the 2 or 3 that they fixed, they got rid of the other ones. They're like, I don't even care anymore, because the vast difference in their business was enough to, in terms of profit, was enough to more than compensate them for those 2. They're like, it's just not worth the headache. So there's options you get then, right? You're building yourself options by going after these percentages here and here and there. And by the way, Sean, I heard that this was such a big deal to you. You couldn't find the right tool. It's a rumor. You can confirm for me. You couldn't find the right tool to identify those things. I heard you might have built it yourself.
Yeah, that was back when I was really naive that I thought I could build software for like $100,000 and $1 million later, we're still debugging.
Right. I do not agree to that. So back to the framework here. So now we're at 28% cost of goods, right? We've lost 8% of our profit. And I've shown you all this stuff. I've thrown it around. So we're going to take one slide here, and I'm going to show you all these stacked together, right? So we start out with this idea. We're holding all other costs the same. $1 million business. We want to make 10%. All the other costs are held at $700,000 just because that's sort of our assumption we're making there. And as we hit we want to target 20%, and therefore what's left is $100,000 at 10% profit. And we can see that on the top left here. But then the customers aren't buying what we thought they would buy. We haven't reevaluated our pricing strategy. our happy hour might be an hour too long, whatever it is, and we're scrunched down a little bit more. And that extra 4% cost jumps right into the profit. We're down to 60 grand a year per million. And then finally, we've got some serious problems with wastage or with loss, with theft, or maybe it's just bad practice. By the way, the most common non-theft issue I found, and this is something you can go after right away, is focus. I had a client in Virginia, amazing operator, massive sports bar, multi-level, cool place, losing 360 bottles of beer a week. Owner's like, yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm like, oh, great. I'm glad you think so. I don't have to convince you. He goes to each bartender and they're like, no, there's no way. He says, look, let me ask you a question. We've got 3 floors. And on a Friday and Saturday, we've got 4 bartenders per floor. Do you think you could forget to bring in 5 bottles of beer? I'll ship. Oh, yeah, of course. Let's do the math. It was 360 bottles of beer. Literally 2 weeks later, 36 bottles. Purely just talking to his team about focus, letting them know how important it was, showing them that he had the information, the data, and them taking it seriously. Like, it has a very real impact. So that's a place you can start without even just paying attention, see what your staff's doing. And if they're not, hey, we need to focus more. So this is the big picture, right? We want to be on the top left here. We don't want to be on the bottom right. And if you get to the top left, then we can start looking at other parts of the business and we can get another percent here, here, here. And we can go from 10% to 15 to 18, right? And that's the whole idea here today. And I don't want to go too deep in anything else. And that's basically what I have. But I have 2 other things for you that I want to offer.
Just real quick, and you know, I get asked all the time about loss in bars and restaurants and what should it be, what should the number be, or what's acceptable. You know, it's never going to be 0 because you're selling partial products. You're handling liquid, right? It's never going to be 0, but it should be pretty close to 0. Mm-hmm. And you've only got, you know, 3 major types of products. You know, those that you sell in partial units, right? A bottle of wine gets opened and poured, bottles of spirits and so forth. You've got your kegs. They've got their own unique problems. And then you've got your packaged product. So starting in reverse order, packaged product should be 0.
Yeah.
Right? Like you know, I'm in an office right now. How many chairs do I expect to lose every week? 0. Right? People that work here need chairs, but they can't take mine. Right? So if you need a chair, let me know and I'll loan you one, but you're going to write it down and we're going to get it back at a certain date. Same with a bottle of beer. That's the deal. When it comes to your keg beer, like I tell you what, people are misguided often in their expectations for a draft because it is messy, especially if you don't have it engineered properly and really taken care of.
Oh, so,
but that should still sit below, you know, 1.5% loss. I wouldn't be running beer if I was losing 3% of it. It just wouldn't be worth it. You'd have to price adjust. And then on the spirit side, again, like if your reporting's coming in at more than 1.5%, maybe 2%, if you're real high volume, you're not doing it right, right? Like you just have to set new expectations, help your staff understand, work with them, train them, and report and act on those reports, and you'll run a tight business. I've never come across a business that couldn't get their losses down below 2%.
Never. If they want to, they can get there. You actually just gave me a thought here. One thing that the easiest place to start, right? You just said it, bottled beer. So for any of those on the call, I have 3 things here for you actually. And they range in, hey, where are you at? Are you like, hey man, I'm just getting my head around this. I need a place to start. Bottle beer counts. If you email me, I got a very simple spreadsheet. You can put your beginning, ending counts in there. All you have to do is count them, put in your purchases, and drop in your sales. It'll tell you how many bottles of beer you're missing in a given time period. You can pick any time period you want. So if you need a place to start and you don't have access to advanced software, somebody like me in your area, that's a great place to start to see where your business is at. Second, getting a little more advanced, we have a cocktail costing calculator that we developed over the years. Absolutely phenomenal. If you want to get really in depth on some of those trapdoors, you can put in the labor, the time, the special juices and stuff that you're making in the back end to see, do we really have this working right so the business can make money? Because all those little hidden things will take away at it. And then finally,
hey Dave, before we move on, anyone who wants that cocktail costing calculator, if you could guess within 5% what your actual costs are when you factor in all of the factors when it comes to cocktails, send us an email and let me know because I'd like to use it as a case study.
Yeah.
Cocktails are the most elusive thing that you handle. And when you look at prep time and actual costs, opportunity costs during the ship, breaking that stuff down afterwards, you got a bit of a mess there. And when we'll give you this tool and you put it in there, you have to make them, you have to work with your staff and make them, and you can do it during the shift. have someone just on the service bar, you will be shocked at what they actually cost. And then there's opportunities there to tweak them and make them more efficient.
God, yes. And the final piece here is we've been doing a webinar series. So basically for anybody who wants to dig into more of these trapdoors and hiddens, you're pretty advanced, you know all this other stuff, you got this down. We can send you a link to all those, and we cover at least half of those trapdoors and really dig into how these more complicated and complex concepts can impact the business, and then also get into some ideas on how to address those. So shoot me an email if you want any of those 3 things, or you want to chat, or you want me to help you with anything with your POS. I can help. I'm happy to. I think Sean and I share that very much. So we're both guys who love to help people and love seeing people be successful. So I hope this helped. And in the meantime, if you need more, just let us know.
Yeah. Well, Dave, I think you did a great job today, and really shed a lot of light on some important subjects. I want to further encourage all of you to really take this on. Like this is something that I'll admit, when I started diving into the numbers and really understanding how to run and manage my business in a fiscally intelligent way, it was a little bit overwhelming for me. And I just decided, like, I'm going to tackle it one piece at a time, which is kind of where we started today. When you just look at costing and you try to figure out, like, does this actually make sense? Are we in the red? Are we not doing things right? The most exciting position you could be in is in the yellow, where you're kind of getting it right. And as Dave demonstrated today, you start to turn up those tweaks, and you've suddenly got an opportunity to make 5% more and 10% more. And that's in the world of business, like that's the holy grail, right? Like, we work with clients that focus on this stuff, and they double and triple profitability rather than going to open a second and third venue to make that kind of money. Yep. Right? No drive time, no more landlords to deal with. Just work your box until you get it, yielding what it should, 15, 18, 20%. And then you grow that box. You figure out how do I go from 14 peak hours to 16 to 18 to 20, right? Like that's the goal of this industry as an operator, is to figure out how to optimize your business. And I'm not a big fan of like pouring water into a bucket that just leaks all over the place. So you want to get it tight and get it right, and then you can just start to drive it. And I tell you, just one last personal note from me. I actually started to learn this when I was struggling in school. When I was 14 years old, I was a dishwasher. And by the time I was 16 years old, I understood costing. I understood inventory control. I could read a balance sheet and a P&L by the time I was 16, right? And yet I couldn't graduate high school because I couldn't read very well. I couldn't do other things, but I started to understand the world of business because the owner of the business did this for us for 2 reasons. One, he had a selfish reason, right? If you surround yourself with people that are financially motivated and financially intelligent, you're in a better position to operate your company. But secondly, he believed that teaching somebody to be fiscally responsible and aware was a wonderful life gift, and it really was. And so I encourage all of you to think about that. We're going to give you, like, our teaching tools. We'll give you this deck if you want it. We've got all the tools that Dave mentioned. We've got a video actually that Dave and I we put together to kind of go deeper on the cocktail aspect. We'll give you for pricing your cocktails. We want to give you all that so you've got a better chance in this new economy. And Dave's email's up there. Should have put his number. I love giving out his number, so you can call him like 24/7.
Hey, by the way, if you want to hear more from me but can't stand the sound of my voice, the bar shift over there is available on Amazon. Just saying.
That's why I asked him to write a book. I just
couldn't take it.
All right. Well, Dave, thanks again, man. It's been cool to hang out with you for an hour, and I hope you guys got something out of it. And follow up with Dave, and he'll get you all those resources.
Yeah. Thank you, too, for being here. Sounds great.
Bye-bye.